In this episode, you'll discover that the anger you feel after a disappointing race is not a problem to fix, it's a formula to read. Today's episode is for intermediate rowers who are learning how to race. Those of you who've done the training, you've sat on the start line with real expectations and come off the water wondering what went wrong and why it hurts so much physically and emotionally. You'll get a way to name what's happening, a single phrase that changes how you talk to yourself after the race, and one question from your own toolbox that turns your anger into something useful.
Feel the grip of the oar handle, smooth yet firm in your hands. Taste the salt of your own sweat and the occasional splash of water. It's all part of the journey. Welcome to another episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Each week, our host, Masters rowing coach Rebecca Caro, dives deep into the world of Masters rowing. Whether you're on the water or in the gym, join us to become a faster master. Let's go rowing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. So today we're talking about what happens after you finished a race. The result wasn't what you expected, and you get angry quite quickly. Most intermediate rowers don't know what to do with this anger, whether you should suppress it or spiral into it. But there's a third option, and that's what this episode is all about. So the first thing is to identify your anger. Name it. It's a gap. Anger is usually expectation minus reality, and the difference between those two things. The bigger the gap, the bigger your anger. And that's really all it is. So we need to learn to name the gap, not the failure. The anger isn't a judgment on you as a rower. It is an outcome, a fact. And that's why it hits you hardest. As an intermediate rower, you are on a pathway. You have been first learning how to train, to do the workouts, to show up regularly, to make slow incremental improvements in your technique, in your fitness, in your boat speed. And now you're on the path to learning how to race. You have to learn racing in exactly the same way that you learned training. So you've done enough training to have real expectations, but you haven't got enough race experience to know that this gap is normal. You might have done some really good pieces in training, beaten some of the other crews in your squad, and feel good about it. And so coming into racing and having an outcome which isn't what you expected is difficult, challenging emotionally. Experienced racers expect this gap. They know it exists, but intermediates are often surprised by it. So what do? We make the gap concrete. We identify it by putting numbers on it. We were 3 lengths behind the winner. My race time was 4:18. I expected 4:05. So your anger in that example is 13 seconds. That's what it's all about. So by naming the gap specifically, it changes it from being an identity problem to a performance problem. And you will know from some of the other sports psychology episodes that we've done that this is really important. Notice what you say and how you describe it. I worked hard, but it fell apart. And that but is the gap in your language. You've made it, you've verbalized it. So your anger proves that your expectation is real, and the expectation is a good thing. But try to name the gap in numbers, not in feelings, so that we're being clinical, scientific, we're not being emotional. The problem with being emotional is it becomes personal in a way that affects us negatively, far harder than saying our gap was 13 seconds. So let's move on. The next thing we have to do is to accept it. In this stage, what you need is less but and more and. Let me explain that. Your language in your post-race debrief, whether it's in your head or in the crew discussion, will have used the word but. I said, I worked hard, but it fell apart. That but word cancels everything that goes before it. I trained hard, but I had a bad race. Erases the quality of the training that you've already done. And intermediate racers tend to use but to punish themselves without realizing it. So changing that to an and statement does something different and allows you to hold two things at once. I trained hard and I had a bad race. Both of them are true and neither cancels the other out. So you are accepting the outcome. You're not being resigned, but you're refusing to let one result erase everything else that you've done. So next time you're in a race and the outcome wasn't what you hoped for, acknowledge that your training block was real. You did good work in the lead up to this regatta, and today was hard, but your next race is still ahead. And remember that as masters, we have many next races ahead of us. It's not like juniors who only have 4 years of rowing before they turn into under 23s or seniors. We progress. There's always another age group ahead of us to move into new challenges. So try your statement as 3 true things. The training block was real. Today was hard. The next race is still ahead. You don't need to use the word but. And although this doesn't fix the gap, it stops the gap from erasing everything else that you've done, which has been high quality. And now we move on to changing one thing. You're going to take one thing from your toolbox of skills, mental strength, physical capability. So we don't change everything. Intermediate rowers tend to get angry and then want to change everything. You want to change the technique, the training, the crew lineup, the type of boat, your race plan, too much. That's the gap talking, not the experienced rower, the experienced racer. What you're going to do is if you change everything, it resets your expectation and creates another gap. And also you will notice that when your coach changes something, they only change one thing at a time. Back to our science. You can only test the effect of what you've done if you change one thing. Changing multiple things means you don't know what caused any different outcome. So your question to yourself is this: what's one thing I already know how to do better, but I did not do today? Maybe I didn't do it as well as I can do it. Your answer is already there. It's in your toolbox. You know yourself, you know your physical capabilities, you know what you've done in the past. So think about that and use your and mindset that we just talked about, because that makes this question possible. It adds something, it doesn't cancel things. So what to look for? Your gap is usually something like a bit of technique. I didn't square early enough. It might be a tactical error. I didn't go hard enough off the start. We didn't sustain the boat speed after we'd done a push. We let it sag. We stopped working hard in the third quarter. I looked out of the boat at the crews next to me, so I allowed myself to be distracted by the other crews around me. Or it might have been your fitness in the third quarter of the race. All I was struggling with was getting air into my lungs. I wasn't fit enough to keep up the momentum and the pace in that third quarter. So if it's a technical error, it's probably something you know how to fix. If it's a tactical error, it's a decision that you would have made differently if you came up against that situation another time. And if it's a fitness shortfall, it's something to train, not to blame. So pick one, write it down, and that's the starting point for your next race. And remember that you are here learning how to race. Pattern recognition is a really important part of that. And until you have experienced different situations, you don't know whether what you have in your toolbox is sufficient to respond to that situation. And the more racing practice you get, whether that's training alongside another crew, because that's really good race simulation. Doesn't have to be at race pace, can just be a battle paddle, 2 crews side by side, rate 20. If you get ahead, you drop your rate, things like that we've talked about before. It's all part of adding to this toolkit that you have. So in summary, anger is expectation minus reality. This is a gap. It's a gap that's normal, particularly for intermediates who are learning how to race. Name it in numbers, swap your but for an and ask one toolbox question. Remember, the anger means your expectation was real, and that expectation is what makes you a racer. It's what you are learning how to do. And then invite listeners, go to your crewmates, go to your coach, ask about the gap. What was their gap? And come back to us and tell us what it was and what you're going to do about it next time. Till next time.
We are part of the RowingChat podcast network. Please tell your fellow rowers about the show. If you've learned just one helpful thing from today's episode, please consider supporting the show for as little as $1 per month by visiting fastermastersrowing.com/podcast.